All right. We're back. Yeah, I had a topic I wanted to record about. Oh, excuse me, yawning, man, I'm tired. All right, so I'm back in the trusty car. I had a topic I wanted to kind of discuss. Kind of related to dating, but with dating, kind of more along the lines of the like the importance of communication, but kind of with early dating phases and just stuff to kind of look out for, like if you're used to dating, not used to dating. I think people who are used to dating and are really good with communication will really notice the a lot of the things that I'll probably bring up, and probably the better you are, you'd probably have even more stuff to say about it. But yeah, in general with communication, I feel like that is something that it's interesting, right? I mean, that didn't help for me to say that it's interesting. We all know that it is, but it has so many different levels to it that I think a lot of times there are some levels that kind of, at least in, I'm always talking about American Western culture, there are a lot of kind of methods of communication that we come to just kind of almost naturally because we're brought up that way. And as a society, there's some kind of overall kind of ways that we communicate. That would be, the surface level stuff, talking about the weather, talking about the traffic, talking about, politics, like not necessarily like the views even on politics, but just like who said what. Not even going deeply into like why you may have opinions about what people say in politics or government or anything, like just generally talking about it, or just kind of repeating ideas that we've already heard basically from the news or whatever, and just kind of like retelling or did you hear this, or like sharing something from our memory about something we kind of experienced. But I mean, not really going too much deeper into those experiences, I'd say, is kind of something that is a whole different level. So kind of going like deeper into those experiences, it's like, yeah, why are you talking about the weather? Why are you talking about, this or that? Like, what was your experience with it? What was the other person's experience with it? Like, what was the purpose of even bringing it up in the first place? Like, a lot of things that are really surface level can be taken to like another deeper level. But a lot of times what happens with dating is, especially in the early phases, like I usually will talk more about the earlier phases of things, because I think, I mean, relationship advice and all that kind of stuff, kind of usually stems from like the early on stuff too. But usually it's going to be at a deeper level. Hopefully, the deeper or longer the relationship goes, hopefully it would be deeper than it was when you first kind of met and you still know nothing about each other. And so there's some things I've been watching that, kind of, and some experiences I've been having that have been kind of making this, something that's kind of on my mind. But let me see. I'm trying to find the YouTube channel that I was watching. It's called Real Royalty. There's one about princesses. There's one about princes. It's kind of like a British show. Like, they go to basically like the UK or wherever, and they're like princes or princesses from around the world, and they're looking for, someone to date, or a couple of people that they want to date and have experiences dating in a different culture, but seeing if they find someone outside of their normal habitat, their normal, you know, like if they're like a princess in Uganda or a king of, you know, like a prince, a Zulu prince, or like a you know, like a prince of some place in like India or something like that. Like it's they're trying to find actual, you know, spouses, because that's something that's going to come up, but they're trying to do it in a way that maybe British people might, or more Western people might, versus their cultures that are already pretty different cultures, in addition to them being like of nobility of some sort. And so it's kind of interesting to me that is, you know, it's a cool show. It's not too incredibly like hyped up entertaining. It's just kind of like cultural in a little bit of ways, but kind of like having people do things in a more Western way when they're not too familiar with it or outside of their own cultural norms. And so I think that's important too. And it's interesting to see. So something that kind of came to my mind when talking about communication is I noticed like with the guys, they were kind of more willing to kind of meet people and go out and approach people. The ones with the females, they were kind of less likely to kind of approach someone or like pursue someone. Two of the three were. One of them was really kind of more outgoing. One of them was really picky. One of them was really kind of like, almost like, because in her culture marriages are arranged, it was kind of like I couldn't tell if she was not really going out trying dates because she didn't think it would be appropriate, or she just wasn't comfortable doing it at that time. I wasn't sure if she thought there was something wrong with it for her to do or not. But I kind of was looking at their actions with their kind of attitudes towards things, and I feel like the guys didn't really have too much that seemed to be really inhibiting them. One of the guys was gay. The other two weren't. One of them kind of seemed like he had ideas that some types of people in society, because of their position, are better than others as humans. You know, and you know, they were kind of I mean, they got along, other than that little argument related to that topic. And then also a little argument related to, you know, their beliefs on if the gay guys' behaviors were, you know, up to their liking. But it wasn't like ongoing drama and arguments and things like that. It was like it came up, they talked about it, and that was that. There didn't seem to be any kind of animosity or anything. But I mean, I'm totally gonna spoil this for people if you're not gonna watch it. If you're gonna watch it, then maybe don't listen. But because I've already spoiled a lot. But I mean, like, basically the the guys, what I noticed is that they had an easy time approaching, but when they were in the relationships with these women, they kind of seemed to be judging them based on certain things and kind of communicated to them in certain ways. And then the gay guy had his own. He didn't really date women. Like I think he tried it for like a second, or thought about trying it for like a second. I don't remember. But he was mostly dating guys. But one thing I noticed is like, it didn't seem like it was hard too much for them to look for dates, find dates, go out on dates. But then when they were dating, I saw some things come up where it was like, you know, one of the guys kind of had like, he kind of didn't communicate too well. Like he seemed, and it's possibly because he'd had like a 7-year long marriage previously and then got divorced. And so this guy, I noticed the way he was kind of interacting with the women, like especially when he was like getting closer to some of them, and then At the very end, he ended up not even having the final date in his home country with this woman. And then, because at some point they do reveal themselves, and they don't initially reveal that they're princes or princesses until later on in the show. And then they invite the person they like the most to come to their country of origin, and then they go to that country to experience, what it would be like staying with that person. So that guy, even when she came to his homeland, he opened up to her about something that he said he never told his dog. He never, like, he was kind of joking too, like, I've never even told my dog that I haven't buried yet, or I haven't even told so many, he hasn't told anybody about some stuff that he was telling her. And I guess there was stuff on that same topic that she didn't really open up to about him. I think it was about like past relationships or something. He was talking about his and being open about that, and then she didn't want to talk about her past relationships. And then he was offended enough by that the very last date they were supposed to have before she left his country, he canceled and decided, while she was even at the site, that he didn't want to meet with her, and he didn't come to tell her that in person. One of the other guys, the one who thought he was kind of better than everybody in their status initially, based on his status initially, like he had a good time with that lady, but he seemed to, by the time he got her to the country, his country and everything, he started actually telling her then, oh, I'm really not interested in you. Or like, we're friends, I'd like to be friends, and like, thanks for being such a friend. And she kind of almost felt like let on, like, cause she said that like when she knew him as, Ravi or whatever his name was he was going by, like before he revealed that he was a prince, when he was going just as like a casual guy with a casual job, just an ordinary Joe from the neighborhood, but that was like sightseeing from his country. Like they would say, we're here to learn about like British culture and sightseeing from like their country and meeting different people and stuff. She liked him and they kind of got along, and then he revealed he was a prince and she went to his country, and he decided to kind of like talk to her about their time there, and that, he wants to be friends, and that the whole time they've been good friends. And the other guy that I was talking about before that never even showed up to the final date, he had wanted to make like a love and friendship gift towards her, like a traditional beaded gift, and then he decided to cancel that gift altogether. I don't think he told her about it. And then the other guy, the gay guy, when he was in his home country, he was acting really flirty, like in the UK with this guy, and like they were getting along good. And then when he went to his country, he was like, they never even really held hands or kissed or anything in public, didn't ever stay in the same room. And the night that the visitor asked about like, okay, could the prince stay at the hotel, he's like, yeah, he'd be able to actually stay at the hotel, but he wasn't feeling well that night and he couldn't do it. And they kind of just ended as friends. But I mean, they were all gonna end as friends likely anyways, but it was kind of like interesting the way they kind of like made it seem. And I know for the gay guy, his circumstance was a little different too, because in his country it wasn't really necessarily legal to be gay, and like it was like a whole situation that was completely different, and like you weren't allowed to be like royalty and gay. And so there were some other interesting factors in there. And then with the women, I'm noticing like one of them is so picky that she never really chooses anybody. Another one is the one that I was saying was like, she's so, like her culture like does arranged marriages. So she's so, I noticed she's kind of got this negativity about her. Like she's kind of, like she always responds to things negatively. Like some guy was saying how he liked horror movies or like certain types of like action movies or something like that, and she was saying how much she doesn't like them, and then like, or she went on a date with this other guy and only stayed like 24 minutes, and like they couldn't find anything to talk about, and he did bring up the weather actually. And then there was the other lady, she seems to be like finding a lot of guys, but like she invited them all like to her barbecue and stuff, but she's the one who seems to kind of be better with communicating and a little more like, I mean, she's dating multiple guys and did bring quite a few of them to the party, but I mean, at the same time, she seems to be meeting guys easier and like talking to them easier and able to say what she thinks. Like she'll call some of them, like this one guy, she was kind of flirty a little bit when she first met him, and he walked in the door and she was like, "You're the cutest one here." And then almost immediately before they both had drinks and they just went into the living room together while everyone's outside already at the barbecue out in the patio, and they're like having a drink like privately in the room, like the door's open and stuff, but they're just clearly just having their own conversation until her other friend that she works with comes in, and that was her other date, and things like that I'm just kind of like, and it's, I don't know. And the really picky one, she had a date bowling with a guy, a different date with a different guy, and she was bowling with him, and she literally told him it was boring, but he ended up coming to the barbecue and was just grilling the whole time while she was like in the other room flirting with the guy she liked. And it's just stuff like that that's kind of like, wait, what? But I don't know if they're like put off by it. The guys all seem like they like the women in this one, and I think in the other one all the other people seem like they like the princes, and so I feel like it's kind of and I think they're only there for like 24 days or 30 days or something along those lines, so it's like they don't know these people very long term, and they don't even spend every day together, so it's not like it's a long-term thing. It's like a short-term date and then like come to my country kind of thing. But that was kind of making me think more about these topics. And then because, I started like getting back online, meeting people, because I'm not really too, I think this most recent weekend, this maybe past couple weekends, have been when everything's back to normal, the clubs, the bars, everything like that. And I haven't really gone to any for a little bit. And so I think the last time I went, there was still no like dancing at most of the clubs. There's a local gay club that, they've been dancing for a bit now. But it's like, it went from chairs only to occasionally there's standing room, but it's like with like standing tables. And then eventually when people get drunk and start knocking stuff off the tables, and they just move the tables and everybody just starts dancing. So it's like, well, but it's basically like a bar where people just dance anyways. And I think because usually it's standing room only anyways, I don't think it's really considered a club, but it's like a standing room bar, but it's like people dance because the music it's like dance music. So people just dance, and they have DJs and stuff too. So, yeah, but anyways, so dating, for me, I'll just say before the pandemic, I was talking with a friend about this. Before the pandemic, dating for me was like, if it was coming from an app, it was like, find someone to talk. Well, I would basically go through every now and then, like everything that I seem to like, that I actually genuinely liked on a certain level, like that I found interesting enough from the picture and the bio to like them, to be like, okay, they seem interesting enough that I would want to match to kind of talk to them more. And then if we matched, then I would talk to them more. And then when we were talking more, if I liked it, then I'd try to like keep engaged with that this is pre-pandemic. I would probably say within a week already starting to make plans. So I'd rarely go more than 2 months, 2 weeks without seeing somebody if they were local, if they weren't super busy, if they were in town and wanting to meet, and seemed like they kind of were like already at a phase where they were like ready to start trying to interact, then I would interact. And so, and then try to, go out and meet them if they seem like, if I had fun talking to the person, I would never not want to meet them. I would always want to meet them. And then it's been a pretty long, dry year of none of that, for more than a year now. And so probably like a year and a half later, almost, it's like, oh, like, let me kind of get back into this. I think the last person I was dating was near, let me see, maybe March, end of March of 2020. So that's over a year ago. Yeah. And I kind of I don't want to call it rekindled, but kind of when was this? Near maybe September or October of 2020, kind of got back in touch with somebody that I knew from before, that we'd kind of gone out for a little bit, and then they moved out of state, and then, I was already living like in another city, so we just never really fully pursued it further, but we were kind of like together, but it wasn't like too solid of a thing, because it was like, well, how long are we gonna go on with like both of us living in different cities? But we were kind of trying it too, because it wasn't that bad. Like when I would go up to that city, which I would go to probably almost every other weekend, we were within like, if we met like in the middle, it was probably within a 20-minute drive. And so like I could see them at least every other weekend, and we talked throughout then. And that was fine, like I had nothing else going on. Like I was still like talking to people a little bit, and they knew that, and they were too, but like we were in a relationship, but it was a casual relationship, I'll put it that way. And like it wasn't really exclusive. I wouldn't say it wasn't serious, but it wasn't like solid. We weren't like really together, like as in like, like I mean, I would say we were really together, but it wasn't exclusive, and it wasn't too committed or serious. I'll put it that way. Because I would say, even if you can date more than one person and still have it be, a serious relationship, I think. That's my own opinion. I think that's very possible, that you can date somebody and be still dating somebody else. Like, I don't see anything wrong with that if it's, if through communication and through what you both genuinely want, if that's okay, I feel like there's nothing wrong. But if somebody doesn't like that idea, or if somebody's like offended by it, or it's not, part of the agreement within the relationship, then I don't think it's okay. That's cheating. But I mean, I don't really see anything against, poly type relationships. I've never really had too much concern with it, but as in like morally, is it okay? Or like, like I think so long as people communicate that that's what they're doing, I've never really seen it as like a problem, right? It's like, why would it be? Why would it be like two consenting adults? Like I don't see any issue with it. But something that I found interesting since those times of my life when I was dating and maybe more a little more involved, which has been not really even since like the end of maybe last year that I was even involved with anybody at all. Like this person, I was kind of like reconsidering them, but we never really got back together. And then the other person, we kind of went from like October of 2019 to like end of March, 2020. That just kind of killed everything because of the pandemic. So it just wasn't going to work out because they had to move. Like there was a lot of like different moving parts that were just kind of like, this is all like the worst possible timing for this relationship to try and move forward from this. Because it's like, you know, you don't have job security, you know, like I just switched jobs. The other person was just, or I was just switching jobs. And they were just, having trouble with their job and then needing to move back to their hometown where they hated it. And were already having a hard time, with, you know, all of the, you know, racial tension and things going on at their work and everything. And then, because of their like sexual orientation and like their gender identity and things, like they were really kind of like struggling at work because a lot of other different topics like that kept coming up, and it was really like uncomfortable for them. And then, you know, their job was kind of at risk, meaning their expensive, you know, housing was at risk. And then, you know, they ended up having to move anyways. And so it was really just kind of like, I was like, wow, with all that going on, and you don't have a job, and you have to move back with people that you don't even want to be with, and you're going to be like all the way on the other coast from me. And then it's like, okay, and then how are we going to make this work exactly? It's kind of like, well, nobody can travel. And, you know, we already were kind of like, things were already getting kind of like rocky, for like a month before that. And so it was like, and there was like no end date. It wasn't like, okay, I'm going to try and find a job in a month. I'm going to try, like there were no jobs. So it was kind of like, what do you even do? Like, how do you even try to keep that and manage that, situation when it was still relatively like a newer relationship. So that just wasn't going to work. Unfortunately though, because that was like, up until that point, things were actually pretty great. Up until, you know, the Rona hit. So we were actually having a good go at it. Like things were really good. And that's why I think, you know, I want to talk too about, kind of like the importance of you know, just kind of like what a person's looking for. Because I think what we do, like a lot of times, we know what we want and we try to go for that, or we don't know what we want and then we kind of find things that maybe we don't like or don't know how to address with another person that we meet, and then we just kind of leave it. A lot of times people start ghosting at that phase. I don't even know what to say about ghosting. I think it's pretty immature. I think everyone has the right to totally not talk to anybody if they don't want to, and especially if it's like a toxic communication. You know, I would never expect someone to even have to go back and, you know, communicate with somebody even one more time to be like, oh, I'm just trying to be respectful and say goodbye. But it's like, you know, especially if someone, I don't know, this is just my thinking. If somebody has, you know, like, seemed to do their part, you know, spending their time and energy, even if it's like a couple times you went out or like a little bit you went out, I think it makes more sense to, you know, maybe not after, okay, if you went out on like maybe 2 dates, and it was just casual dates or whatever, and then somebody messages you and then you're like, I'm not really interested, so I'm just not going to message back. Okay, like I kind of get that, especially if it was like pretty surface level. There was nothing deep and meaningful towards that, those interactions, and you weren't talking online too much. But I always feel like if there was like a deeper level to it, that's kind of more where I get into the, you know, I mean, it is hard to really tell, but it's like, if there's like a deeper relationship to it, or a deeper, you know, communication level between people, and then one person just ghosts the other person, I feel like that's not so good of a thing to practice doing, especially if it was healthy up until that point, if nobody was like crossing your boundaries, and if the person, you know, if both parties were like into each other and you were kind of having some level of intimacy, whether that's emotional, physical, whatever it may be, just kind of even sharing like different sorts of like topics that might be hard to talk about with just any old body, and kind of, if that person like openly knows, or if you've openly expressed to that person that that you've had trouble with those things in the past or something, I think at those phases it's like ghosting somebody isn't really appropriate. I don't think, I mean, people have the right to do it. You have the right to just stop talking to people. If you don't want to talk to them, don't talk to them. But I do feel like, if someone's really invested effort in you and they're clearly showing that they're interested, I just think it's respectful to, I mean, I'm not saying just go around breaking people's hearts, but it's like, it's respectful to kind of let them know in some way or another that you either want to be friends or that you're not trying to be together. So sometimes people hint at it and it becomes clear. So like something somebody might say, which would be quite vague, but you could catch it. If they're kind of friend zoning you, and it might be temporary friend zoning, but if they're kind of putting you in the friend zone, saying something like, yeah, you should come to, this coffee shop I like, we should meet there next time. It's like, yeah, I really like to meet a lot of my friends. I invite them over to that coffee shop. It's kind of like, the way they say it is kind of like they're saying, oh, we're friends, or if somebody just says, oh, I think I like talking to you, like you're, I think we're going to become good friends, or something like that. Or, thanks for being such a good friend, or I've really enjoyed like our conversations. You're a good friend, or something like that, right? And, if you are going to end things with somebody, you don't have to be harsh. Like, yeah, I mean, I've had my share of, people that I've come across that maybe weren't like the nicest at ending things. Like, there's one person who was just like, yeah, you can lose my number, and I'm kind of like, damn. And that's after they said that, I was being so supportive to them, and then all of a sudden they're like, you can lose my number. I'm like, okay. And they didn't want to like talk anymore, and I was cool with it, actually, because I was realizing how much they were kind of a jerk. But it was just interesting to me that I was like, it was pretty one-sided. I mean, I don't think they were ever interested, and I was never like fully invested. This was like during the pandemic. I hadn't met this person in person, and we weren't talking online, and they were having like all these problems with all these things, and I was trying to be supportive, and they didn't really like that. And they kept wanting to like talk on the phone, but then whenever we would talk, it would be about like, work, how much they hated work, and they really liked talking about church all the time. And I was just kind of like, okay, like, you're not really my vibe of person. But it was kind of like the only person I was kind of like speaking to at the time, so I was kind of like, I'll entertain it because I got nothing else going on. So neither one of us was like fully into it, but at the same time, I feel like they were kind of more like rude. Some people just are, and it's like, what are you gonna do, But I don't know, like, ghosting is such an interesting thing, because I get it, and I wouldn't say that I never just stopped talking to people, because I've stopped talking to people, but I think people get the hint. Like, usually if someone messages you once, messages you twice, and then you no longer talk anymore, so yeah, there's the one message, there's the second message, Yeah, and then you're not, yeah, like, and then the other person hasn't really responded, then it's kind of like a sign that, like, okay, maybe things are, like, over or something, like, usually I would assume if there's been, like, a decent back and forth, then the other person, and it doesn't have to be every day. Like, sometimes people get in the habit texting every day, talking on the phone every day, calling all the time and things like that. Getting to know one another more, often, interacting more often. And then some other people just don't, like, some people just don't really have the same method of dealing with things. Nobody really deals with things exactly like other people, I guess. But it's just overall a little bit kind of like complicated when there's different aspects of dating that are kind of interesting to try to navigate through. I'd say something that's come up for me, like, the reason why I mentioned the pandemic is because dating during was like, just eventually I was like, I don't even want to talk to people online because it's just draining my energy. And like, I'd rather have like an online therapist or like, something online where I feel like, okay, this is productive, versus like, to me, it's kind of getting nowhere when you're indefinitely just like talking on texting to somebody that you're never going to meet for like a year or more, or like, we weren't even sure how long it was going to be till we could even meet again or ever. And so, like, at these times, like, I feel like it was like, why am I even going to talk to anybody? Like, we're not even allowed to travel. We're not even allowed to really meet. So, like, it's kind of hard for me to really rationalize spending a lot of energy with people or on people, or, when nobody's going to meet each other, like, ever anytime soon. Like, with, like, this is like if you're talking to somebody in like November, and then like you barely would have been able to probably meet them like June 15th of this year. I mean, like, that's like 7 months away, and you didn't even know, like, none of us even knew. And so for those of us who were being pretty strict, that's definitely something that for me that was kind of coming up, because I was like, well, I'm not going to be meeting brand new people that I don't even really know on my own, just like going out of my way to do it. Like, if they just come to me, or as part of work, or like, friends of friends, when we're actually just like, I was hanging out with the same people pretty much, but it's like, if they invited somebody, it's like, okay, but I wasn't really hanging out with too many new people or meeting like a bunch of new people early on. And so yeah, I understand that, like, it was a whole different phase for me. I've never online dated like that, where it's like, let's talk over Zoom, and like, I was like, what is this? But it's not all bad. There were some benefits to it. Like, in some ways, like, the ease of availability was kind of cool. Cause it's like, well, I wasn't going anywhere after work, and I never really had any plans. And so it was easy to like make time for like Zoom sessions or Skype sessions and stuff. Whereas before, it's like, oh, maybe I'm going to the gym, or maybe I'm going out with my friends on the weekends, or like, maybe I've got plans, maybe I'm busy. And with so many people not even working, like talking to people even through dating apps that weren't even working, it's like, well, they're available all the time, so it was kind of an interesting thing to me to be kind of noticing that they were like, yeah, I don't know. It was just, it wasn't all bad, but it was like, I was wondering how it was going to go on, and how long, excuse me, how long would it be possible to really keep something like that up? That to me was something that really came to my mind. And how long would I be willing to just indefinitely text somebody? I noticed that my level of investment was kind of not really fully there. It kind of took a lot more to be kind of keeping attention. And I felt like I kept, like, I don't know. I don't mind talking to people online and stuff too. So I kind of, part of me did, like, enjoy parts of it because I do like just interacting online with some people. And then, like, I think it forced so many people to actually have to do it more. So there were some people that I did talk to that it was kind of cool. We had a good time talking, but it's not like we were ever going to meet anytime soon. So I kind of really did like that, you know, it was easy to talk to people, some of the people. I really liked that. I had a good time, you know, speaking with them, and you know, it was fun while it lasted kind of thing. Like, there's an entertainment factor, or even like oh, like I wonder if after work when I check my messages, if they've like messaged me, like that kind of thing. Like, but it wasn't like, there's another level where it's like, this is just the person I'm chatting with and I don't like really know them. Even if it was like kind of on a deeper level conversation, it was kind of hard to be like, okay, like this is like you know, it was still hard to be pretty invested when it was just going to be like the texting and stuff. Or even like online video chatting. That to me is just kind of like, I'm really like a meet in person kind of person. I don't mind, you know, the texting to kind of date or to get to know each other and stuff, but, or to meet up. But, you know, for me, the texting and never really meeting up just wasn't really my thing. And then, so what I've been kind of noticing lately for myself is like this post-pandemic phase. It's because we're not really post-pandemic. I mean, I know people who just within the last like 3-4 weeks contracted COVID. So I know people are still getting it. So, and they spread it too. One of them spread it to the other one. So I know it's still actively getting spread. But I've kind of been speaking with somebody who, like I'll put it this way. I was talking to a good friend of mine recently. We talk about dating a lot, like not dating each other, but we talk about, like dating, like about dates that we've had with, specifically with like women, or, randomly, like he doesn't date anybody that's not female, but, I do. So, I talk to him about people and he talks about women. And then, so basically, like, I'm pretty comfortable talking to him about, like, dating and stuff like that. I'm not comfortable with everybody, especially because people get so dang nosy and, like, weird and just pervy about things sometimes, and it's really kind of disturbing. But there's, he's comfortable to talk to. He's respectful about things, and, like, we talk a lot about stuff, about different kind of relationships and stuff. And I was just telling him, like, I was talking to somebody recently that I thought was local. I wasn't, I don't know if I just hadn't, like, I wasn't checking this dating app every day. So I wasn't sure, like, if I just forgot how far they were, or they did mention travel. So I was like, well, maybe they're still not back yet, but if they really live that far, it's like, damn, man, like, I don't want to talk to someone who lives like states and states away. Like, there was someone else I was talking to somewhere where, I would likely go snowboarding maybe once a year. So I'm like, the potential to see them is there, but it's like, you really got to keep that up for like that one, time during the year. And it's like, that's a lot, but I don't know. Sometimes you have just deeper conversations that are like that, deeper interactions that are like that. It's like, it's the level that I would look for, at least in the online conversation aspect of things. and I would love to meet this person, but we're just not close enough in proximity to be able to easily meet. I'm not going to be traveling all to like different states just to meet people from the internet. Like, that just doesn't sound like something I would do. If it's not going to be someone conveniently located, like, I travel, to hang out with friends and stuff between like 2 to 3 cities, and so, and they're about 100 miles apart, the furthest cities are, and so I would say that's about my limit. I wouldn't like fully like get in like a full swing. That's even pretty long distance for me, but that's about as long of a distance. And especially because I would be going up there anyways, whether or not I was meeting them, I'm already going to go. So it's not like some place where I would never go. I don't have friends there, I don't have family there, I don't know anybody, and I'm literally going for that person. I mean, there's other people that I know there, there's other stuff that I like there, there's other reasons I would go other than them. So the likelihood that I would see them would be more, or that we'd be in the same city and close by would be more often. It wouldn't be like flying out here once a year and I've already got like vacation plans and like I can see you if you really want to schedule that, or we can see each other if you want to talk or whatever. But it's more frequent, but that's about as far as I would be willing to go distance wise. That's my own thing. I mean, everyone has their own. I mean, people date between countries online and have never met, so I don't knock people for however it is that they're finding people. Do what works for you. But I'm mostly talking about what works for me, and just kind of things that have been coming up, because like I've talked a little bit about like dating, like the stress of dating, especially when it was during the pandemic. Before the pandemic, it wasn't like such a bad thing. It was more like the gender related stuff. But also it's like something I think that's kind of more like a little bit of the reason why it's so hard for me lately that I'm kind of noticing is because like over the past, since February of 2020, I've been really doing a lot of soul searching, a lot of, just stuff I've been doing, things I've been learning, things that are kind of like, I was able to get to a deeper level and deeper understanding of a lot of things about myself, about the world, about just stuff that goes on in my life and why it kind of goes that way, and balance out some stuff here and there in a really beneficial way. And even with my job changing, I've had more opportunities to kind of like, trial and error, test with different things, like different methods of eating healthier or getting healthier foods, and like, getting in more exercise and like stuff like that, where it's like, working from home and then also not really having a lot of outside plans and other distractions and like other stuff to keep me busy. It's like I've been able to focus more on health and focus more on like mental health and things that I'm like doing and ways that I look at things, and try to get more towards like what I want to be doing and how I want things to look. And of course, like, things aren't perfect, still. I mean, I don't think they ever will be really perfect. I'm not like shooting for perfect. I'm just shooting for, something that looks better than where it was, because, things kind of weren't too incredibly balanced. It was like, yeah, it was functional enough. Like, I was doing good, but it's like, I feel like now I'm like noticeably doing better in a lot of areas. Because I've had a lot of time and energy to really devote to, learning about what to do or learning about how to address certain stuff. And so coming into the dating world with this whole new, not completely new, but new enough kind of style of, interacting with people, like say if I get annoyed, or communicating with people about, how I feel about things or what I think about stuff or experiences or memories, and like, how open I decide to be, or how surface level I decide to be, or how authentic I decide to be. I've changed with a lot of that kind of stuff. And so I think it's interesting it's going to be interesting, because I'm already noticing how hard it is to, it's not like necessarily hard to date, but it's hard to, what was I gonna say? it's not necessarily that it's hard to date. That's not the hard part. The hard part is dating with all this like kind of new perspective. Because I am kind of more down for kind of whatever, whichever direction that relationship decides to go. I do kind of know more what I'm looking for when I'm speaking to people, especially like online. Just things that I can kind of go with, things that I can kind of, build on. Like, it can be anything. Like, for example, I was talking to someone kind of recently, and, they gave me a social media contact. Like, it wasn't like an email, it was like a phone number. I'm trying not to say too much. So I would say they gave me their Google Voice number, so I was like, cool. Initially, part of me was like, okay, you give me your Google Voice. That means either you don't have a cell, or you don't want me to have your cell, or you don't give out your cell, or whatever it may be, or you just use Google Voice maybe, but that doesn't seem too normal. The app says how far away a person is, and then so yeah, some things that like that, like if somebody says something like that they like the way I communicate, I'd like to know what it is that they liked. It's stuff like that that's like, okay, like, give me something to go off of so I can kind of know what it is that you like, and I can kind of like do that if it's easy for me to just catch on to and just do. And if it's like authentically, not like just like, oh, like you liked it when I said that, so I'm just gonna keep saying that, like, like actually meaning it, of course. But like, I don't really know what they meant by that. If that's a comment, that somebody makes, like, I like the way you communicate, it's like, okay, like, thanks, I just see the message that I sent to you. I didn't text them. I mean, I didn't call them on the Google Voice. I left a text. But I did it from my own phone because, that's just how I wanted to do it. I kind of thought it through. I was like, okay, I can use my Google Voice. But then I'm like, I'm going to miss their messages because I don't really use Google Voice. I give out my Google Voice when I don't really want to talk to somebody and I need them to have a number. But I probably wouldn't even do that. I'd probably rather give an email or something. And so that was kind of the vibe I got. I was like, well, they're giving me something that's not on that app because they don't ever check that app. But then at the same time, I'm always like, well, why are people going to be on a dating app if they don't check it? So there's stuff like that goes on in my mind. It's like, yeah, you sound interesting, and you're making a compliment, and I like it when you say that you like the way I communicate, but at the same time, it's like, a Google Voice number is pretty far removed, and so there's that. Again, there are many reasons why people give out a Google Voice. If they didn't want to be in contact, they wouldn't have probably answered, on the app. But then it's like, there are catfishes and stuff too. So I'm like, I mean, somebody tried to catfish me before, but I just played along because I was just kind of like, honestly, I was just like, okay. Like when they started, I mean, I knew early on because they started saying they were in the military, and then they wanted me to like send them things or something. But the way they were asking for it was in a way that was kind of like, okay, well, if you really needed this, why couldn't you do it this other way? You know what I mean? It's like, they were trying to connect to my Google, like, I think at some point they tried to use like a Google scam and send me like some Google authentication, and they're like, you need to send me the number that came to your text. Or I don't remember if this was the same person. It may have been someone else, but they're like, you need to send me the number that came to your text. And I'm like, dude, like, I can't send you. Oh no, this is some other person. This is when I was selling something online. They were like, you need to send me that number. And I'm like, you're literally trying to like hack my email. Like, what the hell? Like, but No, this wasn't the person from the dating app. This person wasn't from a dating app. I think they were from like, I can't remember if they're from like Instagram. Maybe they were from a dating app. I feel like we talked on Instagram though. But anyways, I don't even remember. But yeah, like most of the people I talk to aren't really catfishes, but at the same time, there's some things that for me are kind of like a little bit red flaggy. I don't have time to really be doing too much interacting. Like sometimes if it's a deep conversation and it's good conversation, I'll interact just for the fact that, like I like to have stimulating conversations. But when that time is over, I'm not going to keep on like pursuing and they're out of state and let's go meet and like all this. I'm like, nah, I'm not really the type of person to really do that. Like some people will, I will not. Unless we really deeply connected or had something going on before, I'm probably not going to leave the state to go meet, in all honesty. And then considering things like, so yeah, there's that investment, like the early conversation investment. We were talking earlier on in the relationship or in the conversation before it even becomes a relationship. And I was talking to my friend, kind of lastly here, I was talking to my friend about, I guess like how sometimes people seem to want to move fast when it's like, I was almost joking, but kind of like, yeah, we can't even talk about how to talk about things yet. And like somebody's trying to move in and it's like, I used to go out with a person who, whenever they were, having like a stressed out time, they would just like stop responding. Like, not that I was stressing them out, but, say like they had a lot of problems going on with like jobs and like other kind of stuff going on. So like whenever they were having like a stressful time and we weren't even in the same city a lot, because they could kind of choose which city they wanted to work in. And so they would choose to work near where I am when we actually had plans. But when we didn't, they used to choose to work up like near their family. And then we would see each other when we made plans. And, this person was kind of like eventually wanting to like move in together. And I'm just thinking like, well, we can't even talk about how to really, talk about, the things that go on that are kind of like, okay, like what's going on with all this kind of stuff. And some of it, yeah, you're going to have to get to know, like when you move in with a person or, you'll get to know still over time. Like, I'm not saying you have to know everybody before somebody moves in, but I mean, with this person, I was like, man, like when you kind of go into this like distant place and it's like, I haven't heard from you for like 3 weeks or something. It's kind of like, I kind of know they have something going on, but it's like, they don't communicate what that is until they've resolved it and it's finished. It's kind of like, I'm not at all a part of their life with any problem. And I'm not saying I want people drowning me in their problems and like dragging me into stuff. I don't. But it's kind of like, a courteous message or a courtesy message would have been nice. Like, hey, I'm going to disappear for about 3 weeks and I'll let you know when I resolve this. Or like something, that's kind of like a little more communicative when like, because the communication was really good up until they were having like an issue with something with somebody else. Like they never said that they were having an issue with me. It was more like it's an issue with somebody else. And then like we wouldn't be talking during the time when they were doing something. But they're like, well, if you have a problem with anything, you can like talk to me about it. But they were their whole method was they didn't want to burden me with their problems. And I was like, well, you're not burdening me because you're not telling me. You're leaving me so far out of your problems that like I don't even know when you're having them, and except for when I never hear from you for a bit. And I'm like, that's odd. I haven't heard from you, so probably you've got something going on. But yeah, that's kind of just some of the stuff that's kind of come to mind. It's kind of like it's hard getting out there because things kind of aren't exactly the same as they were. Things have shifted since the certain time period before when things were kind of going one way. Now they're going kind of another way. So I do find that to be, I mean, I always say interesting and challenging. Those are like two words that I use to describe everything, but it's mysterious at the moment, I'd say. But let's see where everything goes, I guess.